Right. I am live. Right. Hello, gender fluids. Says Nihilist Life Matter. Hello, Della Farrant. How are you? Welcome, everyone. Welcome. I should be live anyway. Let's hope. Let's have a look. Yeah, should be. Welcome. Oh, there we go. I should be live. Yes, I am. Okay. Welcome, everyone. Hello, Della. Hello, West Londoner. Back into the left. Back into the left. Yeah, exactly. Now, while I'm waiting for you to gather, actually, I will go through the comments that people left me on the show notice, because it's always a good one. I always get them out of the way because I sometimes forget them. Someone actually said here, back into the left, back into the left, back into the left. It was Woody Black, yes. That's from Oliver Stone's JFK in 1991 film. Very, very interesting, that. The Israel Diego Rivera Genius to the Real Genius says, will Trump be next? Well, that's something we'll discuss closer to the time of the election. I think if they wanted to do this to Trump, they would have done it by now, and and there's obviously some people protecting him. Cole Costello says in Trump's voice, when it comes to conspiracies, there's nobody better than me. That's true, isn't it? Yeah. Neil Peel Paranormal Peep Show, who's in chat right now. I think he was anyway. I'll just go and have a look. Hello, yes. Hello, Neil Peel Paranormal Peep Show, yes. Welcome, Neil. How do you do? And welcome, David Splendid. Oh, and Nihilist Lives Matter. Hello. And Della Farrant. Hello. And David Splendid Isolation. Good evening. Hello, Simon Tucker. West Londoner. Back into the left. Yes. Graham. Hello, Graham. How are you? And 69 Phuket. Yes. And David Schultz. Hello. Good. Great you're here, David. You left me a good comment, actually, in the notice, which I'm going to read. Neil says Randy Walsh is producing a book on the Kennedy assassination for next year. Right. Brilliant. Randy, of course, has studied the moon landings very much. Indeed, I've done a couple of shows with him and Neil. Definitely. I've fallen behind, actually. So I've got to contact Neil privately because I think Neil, is Apollo to Texas 13 up yet? I've lost track of all the emails you sent me. I'm so sorry. Oh, but anyway, yes, going back to the... Yes. Oh, David Splendid Isolation says here, the new Channel 5 film with the Parkland Hospital doctors is very good indeed, powerfully showing the cover-up being put in place. Right, I'd love to see that, David, because, of course, I've seen the film Parkland, and indeed, you may well have watched my review of it from 10 years ago. And David Schultz, this is a great comment, this is from David Schultz. He just posted this just before we went on the air. November 22nd, 1963 was an infamous day for American and world history. I was a young lad of 14 at the time of the assassination in junior high school in Coney Island, Brooklyn, New York. It happened as I was between classes walking in the hallway. A homeroom teacher ran into the hallway shouting with emotion that the president had been shot. And the rest of what happened that day is history. Even since then, it was downhill for the United States and the world. In memory of John F. Kennedy, 35th President of the United States, I present the following quote. The word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwanted concealment of pertinent facts outweigh the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. President John F. Kennedy. Thank you, David. Thank you very much for that, and very well said indeed for the president. And that might well have been what sealed his fate. And I want to thank you for sharing your very own "Where Was I on That Day" story. That's appreciated. Very exclusive there. So who else have we got? We got some new people arrived. Nihilist Lives Matter. Trump's going to be okay. Yep. They're desperate to get rid of Joe and walk away. Yeah, I will. And we got Rhiannon. Hello, Rhiannon. How are you? Are you well? Thanks for joining us, Rhiannon. And Mr. Gianluca Viali, another bloody Scotsman. How do you do, bonny lad? And that's Geordie, isn't it? Yeah. Mr. Fouquet, how do you do? My Chameleons T-shirt didn't get played on T-shirt today on BBC Six Music. I'm sorry to hear that, mate. I'm sorry to hear that. I know you're a musician. Hello, Ralph Winter. Greetings. How and Nihilist says he said he was going to see the II send the CIA to the Four Winds. He was indeed, yes. Hello, Hugo Rune. Welcome. Plenty in the tin, I hope. Yes. Hello, Body Technician. Greetings. Glad you're here, guys. On this, well, it's actually a few days past the 60th anniversary. I couldn't do anything on the 60th anniversary because I was doing that show with Unwashed. But and I was also pretty tired that day because I had an extra long day at work. But I did a Panmo show on the Thursday, the 23rd. And I know you Wilsonians out there who've read the Illuminatus trilogy know this. But a big deal was made out of the fact that there was the 23rd of November, was between the 2 days of the two killings. There was Kennedy on the 22nd, and on the 24th, Lee Harvey Oswald was shot on live TV. Yeah. David, my posts have been blocked again. Oh, I can see them, mate. I can see them. Hello, Pat Riot. How'd you do? Bloody YouTube. Oh dear, I'm sorry to hear that, mate. I mean, is this like because everything in the spam box I've just liberated. Yeah. Oh, Hugo Rune says I'm running short of spliffs in my tin, but enough for tonight's pleasure. Thank you, Ben. Great, Hugo. As long as it sees you through to the end. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining me. Now, the photograph, I've published a series of photographs. So, for example, for the notice, which I just showed you, is a photograph taken by a member of the public shortly before the shooting, as he drove up Houston Street. It's this one here. If you remember the notice, I'll just show it to you. This photograph here, which I included in the notice of upcoming live stream, that was taken by a member of the public as he drove up Houston Street. You can see here that there's the police motorcyclist very close. The Secret Service vehicle is literally on his back bumper. And there you see Jackie next beside him. There's Governor Connolly and his wife. That is William Greer, the driver, and I can't remember who that is next to him. But it's interesting that by the time they turn into Dealey Plaza, the gap between these two vehicles increases somewhat, doesn't it? If you remember that bit. Now, behind me, that was one of the last photos taken of the president by a member of the public. There were a number of those. This is one of the last photos taken of the president. That there is Air Force One behind you. It was the original Air Force One that he had. There's a new one now. And Jack is there, right behind me. You can see Jackie. There's Jackie Kennedy there, definitely. Let's go to your chat box here. All right. David says, when I post about that documentary, they're blocked. Right, so you're posting comments about the Parkland documentary and getting blocked. That's strange. Here's the Parkland Hospital Channel 5 one. Right. Well, you know what I'll do is, I don't know why that is, David. I really don't. It's certainly not my settings. It is bloody YouTube, as you say up here. But David says, I'm obviously on a YouTube list, like me. Yeah. But the film Parkland is worth watching, but it doesn't go into any. It doesn't really go into anything serious. And Rhiannon says, why was the wife sitting in front of him and not next to him? Why was no one sitting next to him? Well, Jackie was sitting next to. I'll show you. I'll show you again. Jackie was sitting next to John. Yeah, here we are. If that's who you mean, and that's Jackie there, and there's the president. That's Governor Connolly and Governor Connolly's wife. That's the Texas First Lady there. William Greer, who didn't. Well, I'll come on to this later, but there's some people saying that he shot the president with a pistol. That's not true, but I'll go into the details of that in a minute. It's a bloody good documentary. All right. But you know what? You might have the Mandela effect, Rhiannon, because I was talking to someone actually last night on our weird pub live stream, and they said that they remember there being 4 people in the car, not 6. Hello, Bernie. How do you do? But it's interesting if you look at the photos of the Dealey Plaza once after 2:29 when the Bernie. Oh, don't worry about it, Bernie. Thanks for coming. Don't worry about being late. People can pop in and pop out whenever they like. When the car turns onto Dealey Plaza, um, yeah, I think it's very interesting that the gap between the two vehicles increases. Rhiannon says something interesting. That's why she scrambled over the seat when he got hit. No, I think she scrambles onto the boot top. Jackie was next to JFK. Nellie was next to her husband, John Connolly, both in front of the Kennedys. Right. Oh, no worries. That's okay, Rhiannon. You might have had, she says, I remember it wrong. Apologies. That's okay. You may have had the Mandela effect there, Rhiannon. Jackie does. Poor Jackie, when her husband is basically murdered right in front of her in a very gruesome way, she obviously panics and she climbs onto the boot of the car. And she, at that point, a Secret Service agent runs forward to jump on there with her. Yeah. Well, we'll go into that anyway. I just got to let me just recommend you something if I can. Here we go. I've just created this where you can get a lot more background information. Where is it? Here we go. The JFK portal on the main Hapanmo site. There's the URL. And as you see here, these are Hapanmo voice articles, Hapanmo TV films, including this one, which I've already added. Hapanmo radio programs, including 526, which I broadcast on Thursday, and here are the main Hapanmo sites. And of course, even on Ben's bookcase, I've included stories about this guy, John F. Kennedy, is actually a character in my story. If you've read the Roswell trilogy, you'll know that I include him as a character in my story. The Roswell trilogy is set in a parallel universe, an alternative history, what would happen if we got disclosure with Roswell in 1947 and Kennedy's not the president, incidentally, in the story, yet he plays a vital role in the rehabilitation of the United States following the chaos of the post-disclosure transitional period. If you've read the book. Someone asked me some good questions here. Where was it? Let's have a look. I saw that someone asked a very good question. Where is it? Someone asked something about aliens. Of course, I've got to answer that. All right, Diego Rivera. Is there an alien connection to the JFK shooting? The answer is probably yes, and you'll find out in a minute. I'll say more about that in a minute. Nelson Mandela died jumping in front of the magic bullet. Now, that's a Mandela effect I've never heard about. Rhiannon says there's a theory that the mob did it and the CIA just took it. Well, yes, Rhiannon, we'll come on to that, yeah. West London, the first bullet hit John in the throat. Jackie goes to help John. Then the second bullet hits him in the head. Jackie then freaks out and tries to leave the car. Yeah, at least 2 bullets did hit the president. I mean, the thing is, like, the first bullet did come from behind. I mean, I'm Skeptic of the North. If you remember my video about Skeptic of the North, he quotes Gerald Posner and his idea. Now, Posner is a believer in the official story and has written loads of books. Kennedy Case Closed, I think they're called. What's the name of Posner's books? I can't remember. He's an idiot anyway. Let's have a look. Gerald Posner, American journalist and author. Let's have a look. Oh, okay. Yeah, here we go. This is various books. Where are we? Yep. There's Case Closed, 1993. That's all. That's his book. Oh, come on. I'll go to images. There we are. Case Closed, the Lee Harvey Oswald and the assassination of JFK. And basically saying that it's just supporting the official story there. So I hope you can see that. Now, Skeptic of the North brings this up. Where is he? I mean, I should have prepared this earlier. I'll just let me just go through. I'll just try and find it. I'll just try and find the image of it. Because I was going to get the scene in the video, but I mean, you've already seen. You can always look that up. Here we go. JFK. Single bullet. Right, this is important to know, right? This is the okay, so let's go to screen share. I'm going to deal with this now. I mean, I'll be. Oh, come on, that's it. Thank you. See, this you may have seen this. This is an image from the. This was actually a diagram used in the in. This is the so-called magic bullet, which is the which was used in the JFK movie, Oliver Stone's JFK movie. Here's another version of it here, the magic bullet. The bullet obviously enters Kennedy just to the right of his neck, of his nape, just to the right of the spine, comes out through his chest on the left side of his chest. Then apparently it goes in a circle and it hits Connolly in the right shoulder and it ends up down on his left leg. Oh, okay. And so this is actually used, this is called the magic bullet. And some major, real clever clogs working with Gerald Posner has apparently proved this wrong by analysing the Zapruder film, creating a facsimile of it. And here, and that's not the one. Where is it? Here we are. This is basically a shot. This is a scene from it. This is like a still from the image he produced, where he. Let's have a look. Yeah, this is probably the best image to show. You can see Kennedy's actually sitting slightly to the right. The Lincoln convertible car, which incidentally was when that car, after the what happens after the assassination, you'd think, well, the police would want to examine it, the coroners would want to look at it. It's a major forensic. It's a major piece of forensic evidence, that car. But instead, the car was just taken to the mechanics, and they just said fix it up. They put in everything new. All the bullet holes were repaired, and today it's in a museum. But you can see here that Kennedy is to the right of Connolly, and because the seat is slightly higher up, and also Connolly's seat is slightly inboard compared to the back seat, because there's 3 rows of seats in this. It's a limousine, open top limousine. The bullet then, and also Connolly is turned slightly to the right. That may well have saved his life, because the first bullet then enters him here and then comes out there. Now, we don't know if it's the same bullet. I'll explain more later. But all these Posner and the other skeptics are saying, ha, we've proved you wrong. Well, they haven't quite, you see. Firstly, I don't dispute this. I don't dispute that there was a bullet that came from behind. I mean, you even see in the Zapruder film, which I'm not going to show you. I'm not going to show you the Zapruder film. Just when Kennedy comes out of just when the car comes out from behind the road sign, and the moment the president appears, you see his shirt go like that. You actually see the bullet ripple his shirt as it comes out of his chest. There's absolutely, I do believe. Jan Lucas says here, yeah, the Oliver Stone film was based on Jim Mars. That's right. It's Crossfire, the book by Jim Mars. So I don't doubt that that a bullet did come from behind, and you can actually see the bullet just at the moment it was actually fired while the car was behind the road sign. When it comes out from behind the road sign, you just see the bullet come out like that. Kennedy then flinches. He bows over. He lifts his hands up in a defensive posture, and he bows over. He's obviously badly hurt. So yeah, there was a bullet. But what these people have done what they've also done is by revealing this, they've revealed that the angle by which the bullet actually hits both Kennedy and Connolly is very steep. If it had come from the 6th floor of the school book depository, it would be like about 25 degrees downward angle. Instead, it's like about 30 or 35 degrees, which means it didn't. I can't find the details of this. It didn't come from the school book depository. It must have come from the Dallas County Records Office on Houston Street, which was directly behind. I'll go into this anyway. I'll go into this in more detail. I've got a little bit to read here. Now, this is very important because this event is basically where the modern conspiratorial movement came from. In fact, the term conspiracy theorist did not exist before it was mentioned in the Warren Report in 1964. So this is basically the dawn of the modern conspiratorial period. I mean, there have been conspiracy theorists before. There was various people in the past, like there was Nestor Webster, and there was people in the 19th century and stuff who were talking about this. There's a good book actually called Prague Cemetery by Umberto Eco, which is a very good, like, fictional representation of 19th century conspiracy theory. Yet, the modern period, we call it, really began on this at that very time and that date, 12:30 p.m., 22nd of November, 1963. And we know that John Fitzgerald Kennedy, 35th President of the United States, was in Dallas, Texas, on a tour, which is what presidents generally do. This spend most of their time traveling to various places, meeting people. And you can see from the photographs and films, thousands of people were lining the pavements to watch. This open-top Lincoln Continental limousine drove right through the city, and the atmosphere was described as being like a carnival. Everyone was really happy. It seems hard to believe, but there was a time when the President of the United States was one of the most respected and admired men in the world. Especially this guy. This guy was rather young. He was only 46 when he was killed, 43 when he became president, which is the youngest ever by far. And he was sort of fashionable. He had a sense of humor. He was likable, and he was what you call today a populist. And it was a motorcade. The motorcade included several police cars and motorcycles. You see the police motorbike in that photo, and cars full of the Secret Service bodyguards. There were no bodyguards in the presidential car. Well, there was the two guys in the front, William Greer and the guy sitting next to him. I don't know who the guy sitting next to him was, but William Greer was driving. Now, he was a USS officer, but he was driving. So, yeah, the car turns out of Houston Street onto Dealey Plaza at 12:29. You notice then the Secret Service car the vehicle immediately behind with the agents in, kind of slows down a bit and draws back, allowing the presidential car to move forward quite a long way ahead. You can see you could see, like in the previous photo, it's almost on his bumper, but when he gets into Dealey Plaza, it seems to slow down and allowing the president to go quite a long distance ahead, probably 20 or 30 feet ahead. Dealey Plaza is a forked carriageway with some small plots of ornamental parkland on either side between the roads, including the grassy knoll, as it was called on the right-hand side, the infamous grassy knoll. Then multiple gunshots rang out. The president, as I said, he slumps forward in his seat. And then moments later, to the horror of everybody watching, especially his wife Jackie was right beside him, he was explosively decapitated. And this very grisly demise was captured forever by an amateur cameraman, a guy who just liked making amateur movies. I mean, if he'd lived today, he'd no doubt be a YouTuber. He just liked making these little movies for fun, to show his friends and try and sell if he could. And unfortunately, his name is forever associated with this most famous and disturbing film that he's made. One of the most famous and disturbing films ever. One of the films that, the amateur cine films that have been examined closer than almost any other, except perhaps the Patterson-Gimlin film. And that is, it's called the Zapruder film. Where if it hadn't been for him and what he captured, we'd probably be umming and ahhing much more than we are now. Obviously, as vice president, Lyndon B. Johnson became president straight afterwards. As soon as he had to be evacuated from Dallas, but as soon as they found a federal judge, he swore an oath. There's a photo of him. Someone took a photo of him swearing an oath to be president. Jackie Kennedy standing beside him with bloodstains on her jacket from her husband. God, poor woman. She must have been horrified. Johnson established the Warren Commission, chaired by Chief Justice Earl Warren, to investigate the assassination. It delivered its report on the 24th of September, 1964. So that's just 10 months later, almost. 10 months. Yeah, these 10 months of study. The conclusion was very, very simple, actually, after all this work, that the assassination of the president was the brainchild of one person, Lee Harvey Oswald. Not one single other person was involved. Oswald killed the president by himself, shooting him with his rifle from the school book depository window where the weapon was found, and his motive was purely personal. No conspiracy, case closed, to quote Posner's book. Nothing more to worry about. But let's just have a look. I'm going to go through a number of suspicious elements, and then maybe some list of possible real suspects. The first and only initial suspect in the Kennedy assassination was Lee Harvey Oswald. This was a 24-year-old man from New Orleans, Louisiana. He was one of the employees at the school book depository. Now, another man was eventually charged, but I'll come to that later. Oswald he was described as, he was very, very typical, actually, of these people who are set up. You see the same thing with Barry Balsara, for example. He was described as fiery, unstable, trouble with reading and writing, educational learning difficulties, occasionally violent to his parents and family members. Now, at the age of 15, he announced that he was a communist. This could simply be because, like a youthful rebellion thing, but he did start reading some books by Lenin and Marx and things like that. Yet, despite this, in 1956, he was permitted to join the U.S. Marine Corps, which is very, very odd, being a youth in McCarthy's America. During his service, he was often in trouble, getting into fights, discharging his weapon without authorization. He also continued to speak openly about his pro-communist beliefs, which must have gone down a right treat with the other Marines. But despite this, he was not medically or dishonorably discharged. He completed enlistment of 4 years. After that, he traveled to the Soviet Union as a tourist. While he was over there, he approached the authorities and asked if he could defect. He just walked into them and said, "Can I come and live here?" And they said, "Yeah, sure." He then walked into the U.S. Embassy and handed over his passport and said, I'm now a Soviet." He married, learned the language, but then apparently he lived there a year or two, but changed his mind because he thought it wasn't quite the workers' paradise he expected it to be. He went back to the U.S. Embassy and requested permission to return home to the United States and bring his wife, Marina, with him. His request was granted. Now, it's strange, actually, that both his request to live in the Soviet Union, become a Soviet citizen, and his request to return to the United States was so easy. It was so fast-tracked and streamlined. You would think that both the Soviet and the American authorities would be suspicious of him, because his lifestyle has all the hallmarks of being a spy or a double agent or a triple agent, even, for either side. I mean, you've heard the story in my Spies of London video about Kim Philby and Donald McLean and George Blake, and how when they turned up in the Soviet Union, announcing they were defecting, even though they'd been told, in some cases they were told to defect, they faced several years of debriefing, and they weren't allowed outside without a KGB minder, because the Soviets were not convinced that they were for real. They could be double agents. Oswald could be a double agent for either side. But despite this, he was allowed to buy his gun, his Mannlicher Carcano rifle. He bought it by mail order. And it gets weirder and weirder because 7 months before Kennedy's visit to Dallas, he appeared to be drawing attention to himself. He became a little bit of a minor celebrity. He allowed himself to be filmed by the media. He did interviews. He was filmed handing out flyers on the streets to people. Fair Play for Cuba, it was called. It was a committee set up to support Castro's governance of Cuba and opposed American intervention. Fidel Castro was like the bête noire in those days. But he was on the TV. Oswald was appeared on the TV. Now, what's more, even a lot of JFK researchers don't mention this. And this is almost unbelievable when you hear about it. It seems to get worse and worse and worse. He'd already attempted to shoot somebody else. He had actually fired the same gun as well, the Mannlicher Carcano. He tried to kill a man called Edwin Walker with this gun. So, despite Posner saying, "Oh, no one ever thinks about who Oswald was," I have thought about who he was, and he has all the candidates for being a traitor, foreign agent, dangerous dissident, enemy of the state. He lived and worked in Dallas, and indeed his workplace was right where the motorcade was going to go past. But nobody thought to keep an eye on him when the presidential motorcade was driving past, just right past the front door of the school book depository. So, what do you do? Well, what you can do is very well. It's obvious these are the kind of questions that will be asked at the trial of Lee Harvey Oswald. So once he was in court, and the law had got moving, he had a lawyer. There's a prosecution defense. He would be interviewed about these things. There would probably be a lot of public inquiry. There'd be a public inquiry about him. The trial would be one of the biggest trials of the century. It would be probably broadcast on TV. It'd be like O.J. Simpson 10 times bigger. But there never was a trial of Lee Harvey Oswald because 2 days later, Lee Harvey Oswald himself was murdered while in police custody. And this is, he was basically being held at the police station in Dallas for 2 days, and then he was going to be moved to a prison and held on remand. He'd been formally charged with 2 murders, Kennedy and also T.J. Tippit, the police officer who first tried to arrest him. And he was being escorted out of the custody suite to a car or a van or a Black Maria to take to prison. And suddenly a man runs forward out of the crowd. You can see this actually on YouTube. I won't play it again. I'm not going to play it. You can't really see what's happening, but basically he has a revolver with him. He shoots Oswald in the belly. Oswald's taken to hospital, dies the following day. And ironically, Oswald was treated at the Parkland, where Kennedy had also been taken. I mean, there was an attempt to save Kennedy's life while he was there. They gave him resuscitation, but really, you don't have to be a doctor to know that was futile. You just look at the Zapruder film. There was no way he was killed instantly. Now the assailant who killed Oswald was called Jacob Leon Rubenstein, usually known as Jack Ruby. Now he was a local nightclub manager, and when asked at his trial, "Why did you kill Oswald?" he said some really weird things. It was worse than the crazy plane lady. He just muttered incoherencies about, "I wanted the city of Dallas to redeem its good name. I wanted to spare Mrs. Kennedy the trauma of having to attend a trial. That man killed my president." It is odd. The strange thing is that Ruby seems to... This is weird. He doesn't seem to have planned it. There's no signs of premeditation at all. This is just really weird. He may well have had the gun on him, but of course lots of Americans carry guns around. But he drove to the police station entrance just to watch. And there was a big crowd of people and TV reporters watching Oswald be taken to jail. He had his dog on the back seat of the car. It was pretty obvious he was probably on his way to take the dog for a walk somewhere. And also, strangely, before leaving for the police station, he'd taken a phone call from one of the staff at his nightclub. A lady who just said, "Could you please send me my wages by telegram check?" So Ruby did this at the local post office. He went into the post office and wired her wages. Because, I mean, he's known to have been a psychiatric patient. He was under the care of several psychiatrists, but I do wonder if Ruby was a very different kind of psychiatric patient. I have first-hand knowledge about how dangerous mind control is from being by having a step grandmother who's one of the worst in the world for that sort of thing. So I mean, was he some kind of Manchurian Candidate? Now, the Manchurian Candidate was a film. I'm just checking. I'm still broadcasting. Yes, I am. A film. Now, this film, I've watched it. It's got Frank Sinatra, Angela Lansbury. It's very good. It's about a mind-controlled undercover assassin. Now, this was due to be released in November 1963, but it was postponed until a few months later for some reason. I wonder why. Now, Oswald had already been interviewed by the press. I don't know if that's normal procedure in American law, but he declared that he was innocent of all the charges. He said he was he emphatically denied his charges. "I am a patsy." But Oswald would talk no more, and indeed neither would Ruby for much longer, because he went to jail. He was actually sentenced to death, but he then got his sentence commuted to life in jail on appeal. Shortly after that, he got a pulmonary embolism while he was in prison. Yeah, a pulmonary embolism. I bet it was a 9mm embolism to the back of his head. So Ruby's dead, then Ruby's dead. Because, of course, once he had his sentence reduced to life, then there was always the possibility he would actually get parole at some point. Yeah. Another thing, the Warren Commission is inconsistent in witness testimony. So, for example, some of the witnesses said they heard a popping or cracking sound. A large number of them heard things coming from gunshots coming from the grassy knoll area. on the opposite side of the plaza. So if the police officers ran over to the fence where there's a car park and there's a railway line. There was a wooden fence then, and they reported persons running away. Um, Other people said they heard rapid fire shots, so that's an automatic weapon. If you look at the Oswald's Manica Carcano was actually a bolt action rifle. It was a 1920s design, very old fashioned. It's one of these ones you see where they go like that, when they're firing. The best marksman really could only have fired once every couple of seconds. So that was. It seems that several people were bullied and intimidated into telling the right story as well. Forensics, firearms forensics. 3 bullets were found at the scene, apparently on the ground. 3 cartridge cases lying near the rifle on the 6th floor of the school book depository. You may have seen the photos of it. Official story: the first bullet passed wide of the car. The second struck the president on the back. The third was the fatal decapitation shot, which seems to fit what the Zapruder film says. But so Zapruder was standing on top of a bollard with his camera trained on the president's car. We can see the car drive towards the camera. It's blocked by a road sign and the umbrella man. That's a red herring. The umbrella man was just a protester. As in fact, the skeptic of the North correctly says. And then it merges there. That's when we see the president jerk forward. This was his reaction to the impact of the second bullet. He may have survived that, actually. The third bullet was one he could never have survived. So you see, what there was officially a massive exit wound on his forehead. Yet, of course, you get the back into the left thing, don't you? The head goes back into the left. Firstly, there's problems with it. Firstly, the number of shots reported by the witnesses is more than 3, some of them. All the bullets recovered apparently matched the ballistic analysis of Oswald's rifle. But you see the photographs of the bullet that was recovered from. It was apparently found on the hospital trolley where when Connolly was actually in A&E. But the bullets were standard lead. They were lead ball. They were just standard ball. They have very limited penetration depth, wide explosive force. So there was no armor piercing jacket on this bullet. It was unjacketed ball, which means that by the time it had hit 2 targets and completely gone through these solid objects, these 2 bodies, it would be in fragments. What should have emerged from Connolly's arm was some misshapen pieces of shrapnel. This is why they call it a pristine bullet. There's several people who've tried to reproduce this in experiments, and obviously you can't shoot someone for real in an experiment, but they've used things like pumpkins and melons. The skeptics love that because, indeed, Skeptic of the North mentions this. You see actually in these experiments the object, the melon or the pumpkin, will roll very slightly backwards, but that's not what you see with Kennedy's head. It's thrown backwards into the left. It's actually Newtonian mechanics. It's the thing you learn in your very first physics class in schools. It's not. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to see that. So where is it now? The second bullet. Yeah, the second bullet. The path of the bullet, like I said before, the Dallas County building on Houston Street was directly behind. Did it come from there, not the depository? Right, so it looks like you may have seen the famous photo of Lee Harvey Oswald. He's posing with the rifle that killed Kennedy. It ended up on the cover of Life magazine, and what you see in it is actually the shadows are not right, as if it's a composite photo. Now you know the Apollo Detectives films I've done with Neil Ward, and Marcus Allen and the others. That is actually we investigate, for example, shadows in the lunar photos. This is a very similar investigation. The photo was supposedly taken by Marina, his wife, but it looks like some kind of composite. There's also documents have gone missing, things like that. And then also the path reports. I mean, there were two path reports issued: the Dallas coroner and the U.S. Navy path report at Bethesda, Maryland. Um, now, again, a lot of this stuff's classified. I mean, it's a lot of the material, including the pathology reports, are classified, and it shouldn't be like that. These things should be more open. These should. Why did the Warren Commission not address these in full? And because the Warren Commission was a public report, rather like the Diana inquiry, though, it has a lot of omissions and distortions. Prouty's Law. Colonel Leroy Fletcher Prouty was Kennedy's head of special operations for the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the governing body of the U.S. military. After the murder, Prouty made some public statements which hinted that he suspected a conspiracy to kill the president. These have become known as Prouty's Law. It states that assassinations do not happen, they are allowed to happen. The active role is played by those responsible for the security of the victim, withdrawing their protection at a crucial time which allows the assassin an opportunity to prosecute the target. In any investigation, don't look at the killer, look at those who were running security and failed their charge. Why did the Secret Service car hold back when they pulled into Dealey Plaza? Just left the president kind of on his own in the middle of the road. This could be applied to other cases. What about Diana? The death of Diana. How was it the princess and Dodi Al-Fayed were left alone in the car with just two bodyguards in the middle of Paris, a car which had been stolen the previous day? It's another example of Prouty's Law. You could probably think of some more. Now, as I said, Bill Cooper. Got a lot of respect for Milton Cooper. Milton William Cooper, yes, the great guy who kind of inspired me. He was a bit like me. He had a radio show and things like that. Now, the driver of the car is Agent William Greer, and I don't know if he's any relative of Dr. Stephen Greer, probably not, but it's a common name. If you look at the Zapruder film, at one point it looks like he very suddenly turns in his seat and fires a pistol at the president. For me, I don't really see that. I think it's just like a glint of light, an uneven pattern of light, but it's just literally sunlight glints off his head. It looks like his hand holding a pistol. If he does, then he moved very quickly. He was driving along and he literally went like that, which your mind controlled, you can do. Another issue. Now, this is helped by the fact that in the United States, many citizens are firearms trained. Right. If Oswald was the lone assassin and he decided to shoot the president on Dealey Plaza, now you might think that's irrelevant, but it's not until you learn a few facts about marksmanship, which a lot of Americans already know this, but people in Britain don't unless you have police or military experience, you probably don't know this. When a gun is fired at the target, the bullet doesn't hit it instantly. It takes some time to travel there, depending on the range of the target and how fast the bullet's moving. In other words, it has a muzzle velocity, which varies from weapon to weapon, which then affects things like its range. It also depends whether the target is still or moving. If the target is moving laterally relative to the gun, the marksman has to lead it, which means the shooter must aim the weapon not at where the target is at the moment of firing, but where the target will be when the bullet arrives. A bullet from a Manica Carcano rifle travels very fast, about 1,000 feet per second as it leaves the muzzle, slow slightly through friction with the air. Kennedy was in a moving car. He was 88 yards away from the 6th floor of the book depository, which means the bullet would only take about 0.2 of a second to cover that distance. But in that time, the target, Kennedy's head, would have moved over a foot, which means Oswald would have to lead Kennedy's head by 1 foot or so. Any miscalculation on the lead, and he'd have missed. Any sudden changes of velocity of the car, he'd have missed. And he only has a bolt-action rifle. He can't blaze away like Arnold Schwarzenegger with an automatic weapon. If you visit the Sniper's Nest at the Assassination Museum in Dallas, you'll see the 6th floor corner window opens out squarely onto Houston Street. It was up Houston Street that the motorcade came before it turned left onto Dealey Plaza. And at that time, the target would have been driving directly towards the book depository. Therefore, it would have exhibited no lateral relative motion at all. It would have been All Oswald had to do then is line up the sights, raise the crosshair slightly to take into account for the correct ballistic parabola. That's for distance. He'd see if there's any wind. If there's any wind, he'd have to give an inch or two for the wind, because the wind will blow the bullet off course slightly, and then fire directly into the president's face. That would have been a comparatively easy shot. It would have been a comparatively easy shot. Not much more range either. Why didn't he? There's a lot of Americans have asked this question. What you would have if Kennedy was shot in Dealey Plaza? You would have Dealey Plaza would be the perfect. As I said, it would be a more difficult shot for a single shooter in the book depository, but a much better shot if you had like 3 marksmen spread out around the plaza, maybe one behind the fence at the grassy knoll, one in the Dallas County Records building, maybe a third one somewhere else. That's what's meant by crossfire. This is why Jim Mars called his book Crossfire. I could go on for ages about this, but who do you think? So I basically, what I'm saying is here that the official story is a crock of shit, and after 60 years, we still got to keep saying that. Now, who did it? I'll go back to the chat and see how you guys are getting on. See if there's anyone new here. Oh, we've got Kimmy Panda. Hi, Kimmy. How you doing? Welcome. Any new people? Oh, Hugo's been to Hawaii. Oh, where? Hugo's. They call him the Pakaloco kid, because I was always taking the local wheat. Oh, Hugo, you're such a card. Hello, Martin Pratt. Welcome. We will never know the facts. Oswald was silenced, and so was Ruby. Yes, correct. Any other new people here? DJ Butu, welcome. How do you do? Sega Saturn, welcome. Thanks for joining us. I'll go into who did it in a minute. We'll talk about who did it. Who was it? Hello, Mark One. Welcome. Who did it, guys? Right, Fidel Castro involvement. Ah, yes, we're going to come on to that. It was an inside job. Yeah, but inside job by whom? Well, the CIA. It's the usual suspects, the CIA. Now, they've fallen out with Kennedy for several reasons. The president, what he did was he actually did state that he was going to disband the entire organization. Someone's already said this in chat earlier. Break it into a million pieces and scatter it to the wind. 3 men were found in Dealey Plaza dressed as tramps, who were identified as positively as CIA agents. And oddly enough, one of them was a guy called Fred Chrisman, who was involved in a UFO incident in 1947. It's very strange, that. The military-industrial complex, again, Kennedy did warn a few people about that. Kennedy was warned, and we were all warned by Dwight Eisenhower in his closing address. He warned the people about the dangers of the military-industrial complex. One of the people who did pay attention to his warning was his successor. A lot of very powerful arms manufacturers had forecasted huge profits out of the Bay of Pigs invasion. And also, of course, the storm clouds of war were gathering above Vietnam. Kennedy threatened those revenue streams because he actually did not. I mean, he did not carry on with he did not continue with the Bay of Pigs invasion with a full-scale regime change, which, as we know, they often don't work. They've been tried since then and fail. Maybe he realized that. Night 3. Fidel Castro, of course, leader of the Socialist Republic of Cuba. Obvious reasons to despise Kennedy. Kennedy took a hard line against Cuba. There was also, of course, the missile crisis, which Kennedy's careful handling of that probably saved the world and also dented the Cuban pride an awful lot. So the pro-Castro Cubans hated the president. So did the anti-Castro Cubans. There's a large expatriate community in the United States. They basically refugees from Cuba felt betrayed because Kennedy had trained up the Brigade 2506, which was Cuban exiles. The idea was they were going to land at the Bay of Pigs and then stage a coup against the Castro regime. And the people, the community, the Cuban community in the United States, especially in Florida, believed that their moment of vindication had arrived. The Castro regime would be gone, they'd be returned to their homelands, and that would be the end of it. It didn't work, and Castro remained in power until 2013 when he died, or I actually think he died probably a bit later, but his death was reported in 2013. When that failed, Kennedy didn't act after the defeat of the brigade. And Castro, as I said, remained in power for many, many more years to come. Funnily enough, I mean, maybe some of the anti-Castro Cubans actually thanked him, because what Kennedy did when he cancelled the invasion was he actually approached Castro and negotiated the release of the prisoners. So I'm sure the families of those men, the Brigade 2506, were quite pleased with Kennedy because he managed to get them released. Otherwise, they'd have probably been executed in jail. The mob, right, Rhiannon mentioned this. There's a lot of evidence to suggest organised crime syndicates were involved. There's documents that came to light after the Warren report was published, indicating several mafia families were annoyed because they had a massive stake in Havana's casinos. Yeah, Havana's very like Las Vegas. It seems to be all casinos everywhere, but they're run by the corrupt. Under the Batista, the previous president, they were run by basically various mobs, various gangsters. Castro cleaned them up, and so the mafia and the U.S. government had a common enemy, which they united with. And also the mafia had a grudge against the Kennedys because Robert Kennedy, Attorney General, declared war on the mob. He was determined to shut them down, arrest them, imprison them wherever they lurked. Now in Italy, many politicians and judges and police chiefs have died for saying things like that. Joseph Kennedy, the dad, he owed a lot of money to a guy called Sam Giancana, who was a mafia godfather. Joseph Kennedy worked with them to import liquor during the Prohibition era, and he had not paid his bills. So it's possible they killed John out of revenge, with or without CIA collaboration. Federal Reserve, yeah, this is a famous one. Kennedy wanted to bring back greenback dollars, a nationalized currency he ordered the Federal Reserve, the US Treasury, to print greenback dollars, which really pissed off the Federal Reserve. In fact, 98 years before then, another US president tried to do the same thing, Abraham Lincoln, and shared the dubious honor of being murdered while in office. Yeah, coincidence? The Russians, of course, the Soviet Union wanted Kennedy out of the way because he'd really put their nose out of joint over the Cuban Missile Crisis. That was a massive propaganda victory for the United States. Khrushchev blinked, etc. The KGB had an international squad of trained killers. They were perfectly capable of taking out dissidents and defectors, and they succeeded in 1940 with Leon Trotsky, and a Romanian defector called Ioan Mihai Pacepa once told a journalist that the KGB had a death list of several Western leaders, and one of them was JFK. The Ulster Loyalists, right? You may think this is a bit weird, but it's actually, this is quite plausible. John F. Kennedy was loved in Ireland. The Irish people adored him. One of his most successful ventures was his state visit to Ireland. He addressed the Dáil Éireann. I think he's the only head of state to do that. And this annoyed the Ulster Protestants, and the main agitator at that time was the verbose Ian Paisley. He was convinced that there was a conspiracy to plot the genocide of his people. He thought that Kennedy actually was a Roman Catholic of Irish extraction. Not only that, Kennedy was royal. He was a direct descendant from King Brian Borluma Kennedy, who was High King of Ireland in the 10th century. If Ireland had kept its indigenous monarchy, it's possible that John F. Kennedy would not only be President of the United States, he may have been King of Ireland as well. And I don't know what genealogists have to say about that, but that's a possibility. Paisley began circulating these hysterical rumours that there was going to be a carrier battle group bombarding Belfast, things like that. And this is always the way. The Anglo-Irish conflict has always been played out in parallel in the US. It is from America that the IRA organised and funded a lot of their operations. And the Ulster Loyalist Protestants, they had a community too. There's people, they call them Scotch Irish. These are basically people of Ulster Protestant background. And there's some very famous Scotch-Irish Americans, actually. Senator John McCain. McCain is a very Northern Irish name. General George Patton. And Elvis Presley. Yes. Was Elvis asked any tough questions about what he was doing that day? Marilyn Monroe. Supporters of Marilyn Monroe, yeah. We know that the famous actress, sex symbol, media megastar, had an affair with Kennedy, President Kennedy. Later, his brother Robert. It's possible these liaisons resulted in a murder conspiracy because her ex-husband was Joe DiMaggio, former baseball star, mafia boss. That brings the mob in again. The Ku Klux Klan. Kennedy supported black civil rights. That made him a bête noire for white supremacists. He forcibly overrode the segregation laws in places like Alabama. The Klan has shown itself capable of murder before. It's carried out terrorist attacks, shootings. Why not with Kennedy? Of course, Lyndon B. Johnson, LBJ, vice president to Kennedy. Now, Johnson was an older man from a more humble background than Kennedy. Kennedy was like blue blood. And he might have been resented being ordered around by this posh young upstart. And of course, he benefited by becoming president. Now, finally, guys, this is the bit you've all been waiting for. How are you getting on in chat? And how's things going? Everything all right? Cool. Hugo Roon. Quick estimate, £3 a spliff. Oh, my goodness me. He must be selling millions then. Right. This is the bit you've all been waiting for. The UFO conspiracy. Sounds bizarre, but it's actually one of the more likely ones in my view. And indeed, if you read Richard Dolan's first UFO and the National Security State books, he talks about this. Now, apparently soon after his inauguration, Kennedy asked for information about UFOs, and the breakaway civilization agreed to initiate him into the secret. A summit was set up at Tyndall Air Force Base in Florida. He was shown fragments of UFO wreckage and alien bodies from the Roswell incident. This is I don't know the source for this. The citation is in the book. Now, he was told about the truth embargo, the need for total secrecy, but apparently he disliked this idea of a cover-up intensely, and he took steps to initiate unilateral UFO disclosure, which eventually got him listed for disposal. And it may have been connected to Marilyn Monroe, because he may have told Marilyn about the secret of UFOs during their affair. It's amazing what people will say in pillow talk, when their head's all full of hormones from having sex. It's amazing what people will say. This is why you get these honey traps and things like that. Spies will often get these honey traps to seduce people. I thought, what's the hormone called? I forgot what the hormone is called now. But I know that it's something that has a similar effect to alcohol. But it's possible because just shortly before she died, apparently of a drugs overdose, she said she would host a press conference to reveal something that would shock the world. Was it UFOs? Now, Marilyn is not known to have had any interest in UFOs herself, but she knew people who did. One was someone called Dorothy Kilgallen, a fellow actress and journalist. Another was a man she had an affair with, and rumor has it they were briefly married. There's actually a movie about this, like a TV movie. His name was Robert Slatzer, and they were married briefly, but the wedding was annulled. So also Kilgallen was. This is going to shock a lot of you, but there was apparently a Roswell type UFO crash here in the UK in 1954 at a place called Coldbeck, Cumbria. On the 7th of April 1952, Life magazine ran a story about Marilyn in which she spoke about interplanetary sources. So yeah, that's quite something, isn't it? Now, the moment this ties into with the royal thing as well. The moment Kennedy died, it was 12:30 p.m. on the 22nd of November 1963. Many people around the world heard a high-pitched scream, especially those with Irish roots, and this is said to be the keening of the banshee. This is a figure in Irish mythology who screams when something disastrous happens, and it's particularly linked to the deaths of those descended from the Tuatha Dé Danann, the legendary founding race of Ireland. This is the lineage from which the kings come down. including Brian Bornu McKennedy, the High King of Ireland in the 10th century. So the Banshee may have wailed for the passing of a child of the Tuatha De Danann. And there are other occult elements to this as well. The beheading. Now, beheading has always been a very potent death. It's been the favourite for the slaughter of a monarch since time immemorial. Now, in the 17th century here in England, people were usually hanged as execution, but after the Civil War, King Charles I was beheaded. His prosecutors beheaded him, and of course, very famously in France, a lot of so many aristocrats, they lost their heads to Madame Guillotine. These executions were public, they were raucous, they were bloody. Many Western political leaders have been assassinated. In more recent years, it's often a hidden bomb, poison in their food. Kennedy was graced with this very archaic and traditional royal death. There was no axe, no guillotine, but a bullet. I mean, you could call what was done a beheading. And indeed, in Immortal Technique's song, his rap, Fourth Branch, you hear the lyric, "Beheaded the president." Dealey Plaza is the site of Dallas's oldest Masonic temple, and in the grassy knoll area just beside the depository, there is an obelisk. The street plan of Dealey Plaza looks like an Illuminati pyramid, and on Kennedy's grave, Arlington National Cemetery, you'll see a gas flame burning, the eternal flame, the lighted torch of the Illuminati. There were other killings as well. I mean, within the space of 5 years, there were 2 other really suspicious assassinations. For instance, April 5th, 1968, the Martin Luther King was shot dead. Now, it's funny enough, he predicted his own death. It's weird. King actually felt that he was just having an inkling, I don't know, maybe he had some kind of channeling. He never gave details, but he actually said, I read a book about Martin Luther King at school once. It was an assignment. And people would say to him, "What are you going to do in 1969?" He says, "I won't live that long. I won't live that long." Apparently, there was an assassination attempt on King earlier. Someone stabbed him. When he was shot at the motel on April 5th, 68, people doubted the official story, including his family. And James Earl Ray protested his innocence, and he won a retrial. And Martin Luther King's family supported in that, and they paid their respects at his funeral when he died. But that wasn't the end of it. 2 months later, in June, at the Democratic Party National Convention in Los Angeles, the man pitted, he was pitted to be the president, the next president. He was killed too. It was none other than Robert Kennedy, John F's brother. He was shot dead in this hotel kitchen by someone called Sahan. Sahan says he can't even remember that happening. And there's also fabricated evidence planted against him. He apparently he has the hallmarks of being a Manchurian candidate as well. He's apparently due for release from jail soon. He's very old now, but he wants to go back to Palestine and stay with his family before he dies. He says he's got no memory. He's never confessed. He's always denied it. Again, all three of these it's just a lone nutter. That's all it is. When Kennedy was assassinated, everything changed. Anthony Summer, the Kennedy researcher, said that's when everything started to go wrong, because Kennedy symbolized like a change, like a positive change. It was not unlike the Trump era. Actually, there was a sense of optimism and hope. But when Summer actually says that that was the day when everything started to go wrong. There was kind of like a lot of journalists said that this was the day when everything started to go wrong, and the hope died with him at that moment when he died. For example, things like the Vietnam War, continuing Cold War, etc. Would that have happened under Kennedy? I mean, of course, the Cold War did eventually end. It lasted right until the late 1980s. Really, you could time it possibly to the presidency of Mikhail Gorbachev. Whereas if Kennedy had been president, supposing he'd won re-election, and then Bobby had come after him, would the Cold War have ended even sooner? Maybe as early as 1970, we'd have seen the end of the Cold War. I don't know. I don't know enough. We don't know enough. It's easy to think about what would have happened and what might have happened, but really, these questions, what would have happened, what might have happened, what did happen. If we're still trying to answer these questions after 60 years. So, hang on. How much longer are we going to be asking and answering these questions? So, let's come to you in the chat box now. David says, Sir Hansahan shot several people, but not Bobby Kennedy. It was the security guard, Thane Eugene Caesar, that shot Kennedy at point blank range in the head. Yeah, do you know about David, you seem to know an awful lot about this. You know that you've heard the tape recording of the gunshots. So Han apparently had a revolver, but you could hear very clearly a series of gunshots where they can't have come from one weapon. It's certainly not a revolver. What's probably happening is probably there was at least two pistols firing at the same time. Sega Saturn. 2063, all be revealed. Oh, wonderful. Brilliant. Oh, this is DJ B2. Yeah. 3 bullets. The bullets fired were more. Yeah. I think he had 5 chambers and there was like 7 bullets fired or something. Lily Go Lightly. Hello, Lily. Yep. MK Ultra. Sahan. Yeah. Welcome, Lily. You're not Lily Brunton, are you, by any chance? Phuket says, not a royalist, a bald hippie. But the royal family is the foundation of a civilized society. Yeah, I've got mixed feelings about the royal family now, yeah. The CIA blamed it on Bigfoot. Yeah, the British Bigfoot, of course. What's here now? Diego Rivera, you've forgotten Israel's nuclear connection. All right, maybe that's another one. That's another one to add to the list. Ben, the coincidences regarding the JFK and Lincoln assassinations are fascinating. Yeah, what was it? Booth he killed the president in a theater and fled to a warehouse. Oswald killed the president from a warehouse and fled to a theater. Yeah. Oh, Lily says might be. All right, might be Lily Brunt. All right, I see. You're not going to tell us, are you, Lily? Okay. Well, I'll see if I can guess. I can probably tell if it's you. There's other coincidences as well. Let me just look up this. I'll look them up actually because it's really quite remarkable. Lincoln and Kennedy assassinations. Here we are. Urban legend. Yeah. They always call it an urban legend, yes. Lincoln and Kennedy each have 7 letters. Well, that doesn't really mean much. Both presidents were elected to Congress in 46 and later to the presidency in 60. That is 18 and 19, respectively, yeah. Both assassins, Booth and Oswald, were born in 39, yes. 18 and 19, respectively, known by their 3 names composed of 15 letters. And there's the one I just mentioned. Booth ran from a theatre, was caught in a warehouse. Oswald ran from a warehouse, caught in a theatre. Both assassins were Southerners. That's not so much as... Well, but that's really to be expected, certainly with Booth, who was a Confederate sympathizer. I mean, John Wilkes Booth, he would be the equivalent of a communist in the 1950s. I mean, he was a Confederate sympathizer just after the Civil War. He would have been a massive security risk. And he was an actor. He was well known. Everyone knew where he was. This is why when he turned up at the theatre, no one tried to stop him, because he was an actor. Both presidents' successors were named Johnson and born in 08. That's interesting. Yeah, Lyndon B. Johnson and, of course, Andrew Johnson. Yes. Andrew Johnson, not to be confused with the Ian R. Crane disparager, was impeached as well. He was the only other. He was one of only 3 presidents impeached. The others, of course, being Clinton and Trump. Both were concerned with civil rights and made their views known. Both presidents were shot in the heads on a Friday. That's right. Lincoln was shot on Good Friday. That's right. He was shot Good Friday, 1861. Watching a play called My American Cousin, which has become very infamous as a result. It's kind of like the My Pet Goat thing. Yeah, Booth just walked into the public. This is weird, but John Wilkes Booth, he just turns up with his horse, hands the horse over to one of the stagehands who ties it up for him. And he just walks in through the theatre at the back. You can actually visit this theatre; it's a museum as well. Walks up the back stairs, which to the private box, and walks. The door is unlocked. There's no bodyguards. He walks in. The president's just sitting there with some of his friends. Pulls out a pistol, shoots Lincoln in the back of the head. Lincoln had a secretary named Kennedy who told him not to go to Ford's Theatre. Kennedy had a secretary named Evelyn Lincoln, and she warned him not to go to Dallas. Both Oswald and Booth were killed before they could be put on trial. Yeah, that is remarkable. That is interesting, isn't it? Yeah, that is an interesting set of coincidences. Yes. Oh, no, it's a book. No, less lives matter. That President George W. Bush was reading. When he was when someone apparently told him that America was under attack. Clue: Constantine wasn't that great. I think you are Lily Brunton. I think you are, aren't you? Welcome, Lily. It's great you're here. It's great you're here. What else do we have here? Saddam Hussein was a Palestinian. Yes, he was. Yes. So how are you doing? Anyway, guys, I got to take a break. So talk amongst yourselves, and I'll be back in a few minutes. I think I need one of these kind of like, you have a kind of, what is it? Music, you have a music interlude or something to play while you're out the room. Yeah. Nice matter. Ben's going to drop off the kids off. Now my almost 29-year-old now can drop herself off. Jerry Griffin, how you doing? Nice to see you. Welcome. Any lake drains you found lately? Lily says, wouldn't miss it, Ben. Oh, thanks, Lily. Funny enough, I mean, you may have noticed on the subject of Lily Brunton, you remember my York video where we found that there was that statue of Constantine, lolling on his bloody throne, like he was watching TV or something. Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas, you probably remember if you saw the Meadows video, Caesar's Palace, Las Vegas, are selling little models of it. I didn't buy one, but I did film it. So what we got now? Where are we now? So I'm just going to go through any comments I might have missed. Where's Jock of Aegis? Don't know. He's not here tonight. This is okay. Sega, I was only joking, Ben. Oh, right. Sorry, Sega, I don't remember that. What you said. Sorry, mate. I don't remember. Oh, right. He says, oh, not a Trump fan, but at least he tried to get the truth out there. All right. Well, yeah, I mean, well, we could talk more about Trump probably maybe closer to the time of the election. Anyway, so it's I just wonder what would have happened. Like I wrote this article here, and I did a show 10 years ago. Where was it? This one. Well, where is it? Here we go. I wrote this damn thing 10 years ago. A lot of the notes that I've been reading through tonight come from this article, as you see here, Friday 22nd of November 2013. I've been doing this a long time, haven't I? If you'd asked me back then, if 10 years later I'd be covering the same subject again, just covering the same section, and are we any closer to the answer? Not about this. I think we are about some conspiracies, but not about this. David says, does Rumble have live stream comments? I've never done a live stream on Rumble. I've got to do one on Odyssey at some point. Give that a go. Oh, this is interesting. Did Kennedy know about Roswell? I think he did. I mean, according to Richard Dolan, he was shown bodies and wreckage at Tyndall Air Force Base. And he was told, we're keeping this from the people. There's a truth embargo. And he says, I don't like that. I don't like the idea of a truth embargo. I think people the truth should be allowed to come out. Yeah. David said, pity for me this live stream isn't on Rumble. Is that because you're losing your comments, David? David, if you inbox them to me, I will read them out. Put them in Facebook, in the Facebook inbox, and I'll read them out. Okay, I'm sorry about that, mate. I don't know why that's happening. Is it when you discuss the Parkland documentary? DJ B2. I watched Salty Cracker and Redacted on Rumble. Yeah, so do I. They're good. They're both very good. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, we are closer to answers on some of these things. I've just been interviewing Steve Mera, actually. He's going to be on my next Hapanlo show. And we were talking about this. Oh, West Londoner's off. Okay, West Londoner. You're very welcome. Thank you very much. Good night. Thanks for tuning in, West Londoner. Some of you may have posted some comments which I didn't see because I was doing my lead off. So if you want to repeat them, sorry to make you repeat them. Yeah. David, I think I'm on a list. Ben mentioned Paul Schrade at the RFK event, and it blocked that too. Oh, bloody hell. Right, yeah, maybe you are, David. I certainly am. Diego Rivera, you had the rise of counterculture under Kennedy. Yeah, there was... I think a lot of the hippie culture and things like that really signifies the flower power generation. It signifies the 1960s began at that time. The song Times They Are Changing by Bob Dylan, he composed that song during that era. He actually released it soon afterwards. Now there are several. He actually released it more than once. So there's several original versions of that song. There's lots of cover versions, of course. 69 Phuket, paranoia. They are out to get you. Yeah, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean you're not out to get you. Yeah, that's it. So, what's this, Hugo? What'd you say? You are mentioning posts that are not on my screen. What do you mean? Are you posting them? Just going to go through some of your past comments. I think I get them all. David says, I don't necessarily believe there's enough evidence to think JFK or Monroe had anything to do with UFOs. So I don't have all the details, David. I don't. But the thing about Dorothy Kilgallen is true. Right. We'll try again. I said that the man Sirhan struck in the forehead was Paul Schrade. He even campaigned for his parole. Well, so this guy, Paul Schrade, didn't believe that Sirhan was guilty, because I don't believe he's guilty. Oh, not my post, others. All right. Hugo, are you stoned? You're putting commas in everywhere. I don't mind if you are. It's good. That's cool, mate. That's cool. So, especially about what I said about the civil service pushing for a technocracy in 2019. Yeah. Oh, there's good news though. Did you hear? There's a chain of supermarkets. What is it? They're getting rid of their auto tills. They're having human cashiers. That's brilliant, man. That's brilliant. Who will be assassinated the next? Says Diego Rivera. That depends on what happens and what role people play. It may be Geert Wilders. I think he's. Well, the thing is about Wilders is actually already living in a bloody bunker. He has been for the last 20 years. He's been living basically in an armored bunker with bodyguards. I think it'd be Geert Wilders. Well, he will be. No, and I don't think he will be. I think he's at risk of being. Trump, of course. Though Trump, I think, is being protected very, very carefully. Um, who else? I don't know. It all depends on who they are and what they're saying. But I know that Wilders wants to pull He wants Nexit, pull Netherlands out of the European Union, which they won't like. No, this lives matter. Zelensky will, as long as Zelensky is useful, he will be tolerated. DJ B2, I hate auto tills. I never use the bastards. It's GJB 69 Phuket. Jethro Tull has a lot of answers for. Is that the 18th century farm equipment designer, or do you mean the folk band? David, do you think it's likely Labour will win the election at this rate, or will the electorate change their minds en masse in 18 months? Labour will win, I think, and they'll win with a record low turnout. There will be The apathy is incredible. We've already seen it with the by-elections. I mean, Labour are claiming massive victories in the blue wall, saying, "Well, there you are. The voters are coming back to Labour." No, it's just the Tory voters have stayed at home. They're not interested. Then a lot of them just voted for Boris. They're not interested, and I don't blame them. But to be honest, David, it actually doesn't matter whether it's. I mean, Sunak and Starmer are it's like Coke and Pepsi, and it's not. It's not a choice. This is why there's going to be a record low turnout, because those two are like I said, they are literally Coke and Pepsi. They literally are. They're basically Snickers or Marathon. Which do you choose? Hmm. That's right. Labour are red Tories, and the Tories are blue Labour. Yeah. Hugo Roon. I've sung Jethro Tull around the world. Yeah, there was a band, wasn't it? A folk band. But Jethro Tull's a person. He designed machines for farming, and they were destroyed because everyone thought it would put the farm workers out of farm hands would just be put out of work. Hmm. Pat Wright, the WEF will get in the next election. Well, the WEF is controlling. The WEF will, yes, because they own both candidates. It's like, do you remember? It was like when it was Bush and what's his name, Kerry. Both of them were members of Skull and Bones. Hmm. It's David. So if Labour wins, they'll accelerate mass immigration and clamp down even more on traditionalism and free speech. Yes, of course. And if the Tories win, they will accelerate mass immigration, clamp down even more on traditionalism and free speech. And everything else, yes, they will. The Luddites, that's right. Ned Ludd. He's the sort of he was that's it, the sea drill. My God, I'm remembering all these things from my school history lessons. Hmm. Diego Rivera, will there be disclosure in 2024? Yes, just like there was in 2015. You're the one who's supposed to take the piss out of me for saying things like that. DJ Vito, yeah, Rishi and Keir have Klaus's elbow deep in them. Yes, exactly. Yes, indeed. So I'm afraid it's back to the bad old days of politics, guys. Don't I voted in the last election. I won't be voting in this one. It's no point. It's absolutely a waste of time, and I won't be alone. I will not be alone. I might vote for like an independent candidate or if one of the small parties. Um, yeah, I might do that. DJ Beachy, the seed drill is a good thing for agriculture. Yeah, that's right. Because like when you sprinkle seeds, any gardener knows this. When you just sprinkle seeds on the ground, the birds eat most of it, and hardly any of them germinate. Yeah. DJ Beto Reform. I like Reform UK, except their name is stupid. They should have just stuck to the Brexit Party. Hugo, the minstrel in the gallery is happy. Where is it? The minstrel in the gallery is happy. All right. I don't know. I'm happy when I eat minstrels. I think they're very nice. I think they're second only to Milky Ways. I think they're very nice. Oh, my dragon juice is transparent. So you can even see John through it. So if I go like that, you can see John's head. Hmm. So, Rhiannon, do you follow Matthew Goodwin? I've heard that name. I think you might have mentioned him. Well, Rhiannon's someone I know in real life, by the way. We've met up many times. So I've heard that name somewhere. Yeah, I've heard that name. Right, Kennedy and the moon landings. You forgot that one. As far as I can know, Diego Rivera, as far as I can tell, the only involvement I know of that Kennedy had with the moon landings is his State of the Union address, his first State of the Union address, where he says in 1961, we're going to land a man on the moon, return him safely to Earth, which apparently they did with just 5 months to spare in 1969. Oh, he's been on trigonometry. Oh, right. I like trigonometry. I like trigonometry. It's quite funny because you have like Constantine and Frank, and they're like, let me just get what's that? Yeah, they're funny, man. Yeah, they're funny. YouTube. I think they're quite good because you get like these two people. There's Konstantin Kissin, because he's a very educated Russian. I'm an educated Russian, and I am very, very, very posh and very, very, really, very, very sophisticated. And then you get like his co-host Frank, he's just kind of weird Cockney guy with big thick glasses. He looks kind of like this, and he talks like that, and they make a good couple, you know. They do. I think they're really really good. They've done some great interviews with people. Hmm. Trigonometry, the everlasting broom. Hmm. A trigonometry podcast. It's a pre-recorded interviews, honest conversation with fascinating people. Yeah, but they had a couple of like opponents on there. They had Julie Bindel on there. Francis Foster, that's him. Yeah, that's the other guy. I've forgotten his name. It was Frank, and they call him Frank. Francis Foster, that's him. Um, Sega Saturn. What's your opinion on Russell Brand? Oh man, I thought that had gone out of the news cycle. I don't know very much. I covered this on Third Rail with Trevor, and we thought there was something a little bit suspicious about it. Like the accusations being made against him refer to incidents that happened quite a long time ago. I'm sure he's not an angel, and you know, if when he had when he dated this teenage girl, if I'd been that girl's father, I wouldn't have stood for it. But the funny thing is, like, he then settles down and starts a family and becomes like a reformed character. Then suddenly all these accusations appear and his career is destroyed. But this is just after he starts talking about the various things, the medications and things like that we've been having, and the various side effects of medications that have been very strongly, we've been very strongly encouraged to take. In some cases, encouraged to the point where it's tantamount, I think, to coercion, which is illegal. And it's only after that, that suddenly we found out what a bounder and a cad he is. And suddenly no one wants anything to do with him anymore. Hmm. What's this? I don't trust the trigonometry guys, free speech absolutists, unless it's Nick Fuentes. Well, wouldn't they have him on there or something? Wouldn't they have Nick Fuentes on there? I don't know. I don't know who they didn't have on there. I know who they have had. I know they had Julie Bindel on there, who's like a massive enemy of them. I mean, she's this turf radical feminist. Um, she literally says, put white men in concentration camps and things like that. On the other hand, Brand he likes Yuval Noah Harari. Oh right, does he still, or did he in the beginning? Because I know he was like he was very sort of like pro. He went through a phase where he's very sort of like pro establishment, and he was like talking to Greta, and he was friends with Ed Miliband and things like that. But he seemed to come out of that. I mean, his most recent, in the last couple of years during the lockdown, he was like he was almost he was on our side pretty much. Hmm. Yeah, David says terrible optics. Yeah, and Brand's vile words and attitudes to women and sex. Well, he is. I don't think this is the problem. He kind of made it easy for them with his own immaturity and his own irresponsibility. DJ says, "I met Greta and she did not like me." Oh well, you want to worry if she did. You'd want to wonder what you're doing wrong. I think about he says I was very drunk at the time. I don't think that was why she didn't like you. But it's what I thought about Russell Brand was, of course, he did the horrible thing where he phones up Andrew Sachs, and I know it's just a voicemail, but says boasting about shagging. He says, "I fucked your granddaughter." He was very like, which was pretty nasty, and yeah, that was just so juvenile. It was so adolescent. And that's what he was like for many years. He was like just an overgrown teenager. He had enough money and enough fame that he could just live in this permanent state of kind of like what's neoteny? Neoteny. That's a good word. That's a very midwit word, neoteny. When you want to sound sophisticated and probably more knowledgeable than you are, just say neoteny. Neoteny means basically immaturity. Oh yes, that's the midwit that comes out of me every so often. Yeah. But there were other, like I said, in the last 10 years since I wrote this article of 10 years ago, just over 10 years ago, the Kennedy assassination, 50 years on. I published it on the anniversary, Friday the 22nd of November. We don't know. See, we don't know any more about what happened to him. I mean, there's been no progress, I think, in that. But there's been no progress in that. But we know a lot about other things. Other things have come out. Like, for example, since then, we had Brexit and Trump. We had basically the 2016 effect. And we also had Corbyn becoming Labour Party leader, another populist. And this is really what's messed up Brent Lee's head, because Brent, I think, was one of these. As I've done an entire video about this, but Brent Lee, I think, has had this idea that everything was controlled, and when something went in opposition to that, he assumed that the control didn't exist. Instead, my conclusion was very different. That the control did exist, but it was not all powerful. It was weakening. So we had 2016. Then we had something I should have predicted, which is the backlash. This is the retaliatory strike against 2016. And that was, of course, the C word, this disease that swept the earth. That was their 2016. And at the same time, just literally a year after 2016 came 2017. What happened in the closing days of 2017? The New York Times article, New Ufology, the first step towards disclosure. Diego Rivera, the Kennedy family, yes, they have a history of strange deaths. Yes, as Rick Mail was in that New Statesman comedy, that great sitcom called The New Statesman, and someone asks him whether he's happy about something, and he replies, "Has Rose Kennedy got a black dress?" Hmm. Oh yeah, we got another. Oh yeah, another outbreak. Oh dear, another variant. Oh well, see, I mean, it's possible they'll try and resurrect this at some point. This may be their next plan, because they're going to plan something else. Kimmy Panda says, I didn't know that giraffe tongues are black. Not relevant for interesting. I didn't know that either. I can't remember what tongues. I mean, most animals' tongues are red or pink. Are giraffe tongues black? All right. TJ Beach, you better change into brown trousers. Yeah. DJ B2 says, I thought the C word rhymed with punt. Yeah, one C word does. But I can say that. I can say cunt. Oh, yeah, can I? You don't mind you swearing. But no, the C word rhymes with bovid, meaning animals from the cow family. Yes, bovid. That's what the C word rhymes with. Jay Griffith, what about Robert Kennedy Jr.? Yeah, he is like Diego Rivera. He is like really based, isn't he? Will he be president? I don't know. He's running as an independent now. The thing is, like, he I think he wanted the Democrat ticket. The thing is, what he should do is be Trump's vice president, because he's so based, man. He is like really. He doesn't believe he's really says the same things about his father's murder as we do. I don't know what's wrong. He seems to have a very hoarse voice. Like there's something wrong with his voice, which will be a problem when it comes to oratory. But 69 Phuket says, I've got BSc with honours. you got BSc with horns, I think. Sid Snot is a character from Kenny Everett, who was a brilliant comedian. Yeah. Brilliant, yes. What percentage of viewers like cats? Yeah. Let us know if you like cats, guys. Well, if you want to stay in Alan's good books, you better. Oh, Kenny Everett was fantastic, wasn't he? Hello, darlings. He was absolutely hilarious. This was in the days when comedy was actually funny. Yeah. Kimmy Panda, well done. I like cats too. I do. I'm a cat guy. I had 5, says David. I lived in a house with 5 cats once. I even filmed them. It was a video on my channel. Me showing the cats. Yeah. That's right. So it's not, I don't think it's true to say that there's been no progress since the 50th anniversary of this monumental event, this tragedy, this earthquake, this revolution. In some I think in some areas we've made progress. And let's face it, I mean, 2016 was progress. The 2017 UFO revelations were progress. Absolutely. What will happen next? I mean, what do you think? Like in 10 years' time, I'm going to be. God, I won't tell you how old I'll be, but I won't be young, and I'll be sitting here presenting another live stream about the Kennedy assassination and just going through the same information. Do you think that's going to be happening in 10 years' time? You can predict that. Anyway, I hope this video, this particular recording will be online at the time. So yeah, and you'll be able to tell. You can take the mickey out of me and say I was wrong, or we may have had some breakthroughs, in which case this will be a very, very different 70th anniversary video, and I'll do a radio show as well. Yeah, I mean, I'll keep doing this. I won't give up. I'll keep doing this for as long as I have to, as long as there's breath in my body. I mean, assuming if I still have breath in my body in 10 years, I will. Yeah. Hugo says, my neighbour has many cats. They all use my garden. They all use my windowsill to get to my garden. I just try to make friends, but one got frightened of me, so now I just don't bother them. The cat got frightened of you, Hugo. Oh. Right, how about 2024 predictions show? Yeah, well, what I'll do is we'll do like a New Year. We'll do a New Year live stream. I'm doing a New Year special on Hapanmo Radio, which I do just beforehand. Maybe just after New Year, we could do like a 2024 New Year show. We could go into that. We may even know more. Although there's been a bit of a setback. There's been a bit of a setback. Where is it? Here we go. Steve Bassett sent this out recently. I won't share it because it's an email. The UAP Disclosure Act placed in Senate FY 2024 NDAA draft, which you probably heard of. It's the Schumer amendment, appears to have been withdrawn. A number of activist organizations are coming together to inform appropriate members of Congress that the UAP Disclosure Act, championed by Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and the entire Senate Intelligence Committee, must be included in reconciliation. PRG will be forwarding any and all press releases in service to this goal. And Steve says over the next 3 weeks, Stephen Bassett will be available for UAP disclosure podcast programs. And I've already said to him, he can come back on my show anytime. And then he sent this he says, correction. I somehow reviewed versions of the Senate bill that did not contain the UAP Act. The UAP Act remains in the Senate version, mea culpa. That said, there is a serious pushback to the UAP Act. It could be removed, attenuated in reconciliation. It is the final infrastructure required in the lead up to disclosure. Therefore, it is at the moment for the public to vigorously convey their support for this historic series of legislation put forward in bipartisan fashion by all members of the Senate Intelligence Committee. Yeah. I'm glad that was a relief, actually. A lot of people made a mistake. This was actually repeated by several people before Steve published his correction. But he's right. There's a kind of this may be like a herald of things to come. 69 Phuket says you're not wheezing tonight, Ben. That's good. I mean, maybe when I got back from Las Vegas, maybe the reintroduction to nice humid air has cured me of something. Because when I was over there, as you know, I was like continuously thirsty, and I was just like sipping water the whole time because it's the humidity level in that place in Nevada is so low. It's lower than anywhere in this country, and I think I wasn't used to it. I think that may be what made me get ill. Sega Saturn says Bluebell Hill in Chatham is rife with UFO hotspots, Ben. All right. Is that all right? And David says Bluebell Hill is where a phantom ghost of a girl steps out in front of drivers late at night. The old Bluebell Hill Road also has an old hag and crone that appears and terrorizes late night drivers. Oh my God. That could be a future echo of Greta Thunberg, Right, Leon says cat people tend to be more independent-minded, and we don't feel the need to try and control others. All right, yeah. I mean, that's nice. That is, yeah. I've always liked cats. I know several experiments have been done on cats, which I know Rhiannon doesn't like me talking about, and she disagrees with it, suggesting that they're like psychopaths. But I don't. Yeah, I don't believe that necessarily. Yeah. Rhiannon says Bluebell Hill is where the teenage girl who was run over has been getting into cars with drivers and disappearing. Oh right, that's scary. The Phantom Hitchhiker. Yeah, there's a couple of those. I'm sure I read about it in FT. Apparently, there's a couple of these Phantom Hitchhikers, or I read them in. I read about it in Janet and Colin Board's book about the mysteries of Britain, and that was like, that was a lot of like based on a lot of FT. Pat Ryan, the old hag and crone name I gave my ex-wives. Oh, she must have dropped you from a 10-foot story building. Yeah. Anyway, guys, we're going like nearly 2 hours. Does anyone want to add? Is there anything more I could add to this subject? Rhiannon says this is interesting. All cats have autism. Dogs have ADHD. That's right. Yeah, I think that may be true. Yeah, David says about Phantom Hitchhikers. Yeah. Cat laser pointer, endless amusement. I use a torch beam. They used to chase. They used to really make me funny. It used to make me laugh when the cat was chasing the torch beam. Problem is, when the cat eventually sort of caught it, just used to sit in the torch beam looking really confused. And eventually, see the cat caught on and stopped chasing the torch beam. They're not stupid. I mean, they learn. They learn very quickly that you're taking the piss out of them, and they don't know what the torch beam is, but they pretty quickly realize it's not a solid object. So they used to sit in confusion, looking around when the torch beam was on. Well, they learn pretty quickly it's not a solid object, and basically it's a phantom patch of light. Yeah. You're welcome, Hugo. You're very welcome. Mm. You're very welcome. Mm. All right, guys. So, is there anything else I can add to this particular subject, or anything I missed? You may have posted comments for me while I was doing the lead off, and I couldn't see them. So, speak now before I quit this live stream and go and have a cup of tea and watch. I'll watch. Someone mentioned the Ashton Forbes video. I'm actually in the middle. I was actually trying to watch that. I'm about. Oh, here we go.
And so
I'm about a third of the way through it. I need to watch the rest of it. That's the thing about the MH370 thing, which I haven't made my mind up on yet. So it seems like I think we've exhausted this topic. So I want to say a big thank you to everyone who's taken part in this live stream. So thank you, all of you. David Splendid Isolation, 69 Phuket, Hugo Rune, Rhiannon Jones, Kimmy Panda, DJ B2, David Splendid Isolation, Nihilist Lives Matter, Sega Saturn, Pat Riot. There's several other people who've now left. Lily, if it's Lily Brunton, whoever it is, Bernie Tucker, 69 Phuket. I said 69 Phuket. Hugo Rune, of course. I think I mentioned. Who else? I don't want to miss anyone out. Israel Diego Rivera, of course. 69 Phuket. DJ B2. Who else was there? There was Sega Saturn. Thank you, Sega Saturn. And yeah, thank you, all of you. Some of you are still here, some of you left. But thank you all of you. Good night, Kimmy Panda. Nighty night, Rhiannon. Talk to you again soon. Night night, Phuket. Oh, Della Farrant. Sorry, Della. Yep. Thank you, Della Farrant. Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here. Bernie Tecker. Good night, Bernie. Bernie, night night. Oh, Rhiannon says, consider doing an investigation with David at Bluebell. Yeah. Okay, you live near there, don't you, David? You mentioned you live near. I know where you live, and it is near there. Yeah, it's in that kind of area. Good night. Night night, Hugo. Good night, Ben, and all. Finally, night night. Night night, Nihilist Lives Matter. Night night, David. Night night, everyone. It's been a good live stream. Again, 60 years down the line, we've got to mention it. We've got to go through it. It all adds up. We all move. I think if we keep speaking the truth and don't give up, eventually we'll break through. We will break through. We did it with UFOs. We can do it with Kennedy. I know Kennedy's controversial. People say, "Well, he's just another one. They're all the same, etc." Night night, South Coast Tricky. Hello, South Coast Tricky. How are you? Neil Arnold of Big Cats. Oh, right. I know. I've heard of Neil Arnold. Yeah. But thank you. I believe that Kennedy was basically a good guy. I think he was a populist. I think he was outside the agenda. He was not doing as he was told. And he didn't have the protection that people like Trump and Putin have. He was left. He had enemies all over the world and sitting right beside him. Night night, David Schultz. But, like Trump, when he saw how deep and rancid the swamp really was, he didn't turn away. He didn't turn away. Many, many others have faced the truth, and they have been so frightened and horrified that they have given up. But Kennedy didn't. He must have known his life was at risk, yet he carried on. Wherever he is now, I just hope he's okay. He's probably with C.S. Lewis and Aldous Huxley. It's weird that, isn't it? Because C.S. Lewis and Aldous Huxley died the same day. And of course, those are two men who have a lot of, they're fiction writers, those two guys, and they both write a lot of science fiction and fantasy. Very interesting esoteric beliefs both of them had, and they died the same day. Seems an odd coincidence, that, doesn't it? Is Claire, if Cosmic Claire is there, she knows all about that, but she's not here this evening. Okay. So yeah, I think history will judge him as a hero. A time will come when we will know the truth. Don't know when that'll be. It's hopefully soon. Hopefully before I have to do the JFK 70 live stream. But I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't want to know the future because it'll either. I don't think we're meant to know the future. Well, the future is The future is infinitely malleable anyway. You can never know the future because once you know it, you can change it. See. But I do hope before I do the JFK 70 live stream, we know more about this. We've made progress, and indeed progress on all the other things I talk about on this channel, the UFOs and the other issues, the other government cover-ups and stuff like that. Good night, everyone. Thank you all for watching. Hospital Porters, Pride and Dignity. Stop the New World Order.